What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days, Season 7, Episode 4, Revelation. So let's get into Adnan and Tiger Lily. So it is the day of their wedding. Now, Tiger Lily tells us that in her previous marriage, they just went to the courthouse to get married. So this is the first time that she's experiencing like a full-blown wedding ceremony. She says that she's never had one before for herself, and that she's never been to one because her previous husband, or her ex-husband, never allowed her to have any friends. And so she had no weddings to be invited to. So this whole entire process is new to her, as well as it being new to Adnan. So her friends, Shay and Cruz, who are her makeup artist and her hairdresser, they come to her hotel room to get her ready for her wedding. And Adnan says that Cruz cannot be left alone with Tiger Lily because he's a man, and this is Jordan and they are Islamic, and so it is inappropriate for a man to be left alone with a woman who is not his wife. So he tells them no matter what, Tiger Lily cannot be left alone with Cruz. So they have to respect the law of the land, right? But throughout the time that they're helping her get ready, there's like moments where her friend Shay wants to, I don't know, leave the room or go do something, and she wants to leave Tiger Lily alone with Cruz, and Tiger Lily tells her, no, you can't leave me alone with Cruz because Adnan said so. So Tiger Lily is taking this whole thing very seriously, and her friends are surprised that she is allowing Adnan to be so controlling because her previous husband was very controlling, and it was not good for Tiger Lily. So the friends were like, we're not understanding how, you basically jumped out of the fire into the frying pan because he's just as controlling, if not more, than your ex. Tiger Lily thinks it's absolutely cute and adorable that Adnan is so protective of her and is so obsessive with her. Like, he doesn't want her to be alone with men. He doesn't want men to touch her hair or whatever the situation is. She thinks it's cute. She thinks that this is his way of showing her that he considers her his prized possession, his most prized possession, I think is what she said exactly. So she thinks this whole thing of him being jealous and not wanting her to be around other men, she thinks it's absolutely adorable. It's adorable until you find out that he's been around other women and he's been sleeping with them and cheating on you behind your back. Then it's not so adorable that he was so possessive about you being around other men. But that's just a little jokey joke. So Tiger Lily and her friends are, as they're helping her get ready, her friend is asking her how was her first night of intimacy with Adnan. And Tiger Lily says it was fantastic. She couldn't even tell that he was a virgin. And so it seemed like her friend was trying to insinuate that possibly Adnan lied about being a virgin, because the friend didn't understand, like, how could it have been so good if he's never been with a woman before? Like, how would he have known what to do? And Tiger Lily's like, well, don't all men know what to do? Isn't it kind of like ingrained in them to know what to do with a woman? So I don't know exactly where her friend was getting at, but it seemed like the friend was implying or insinuating that maybe Adnan is lying about being a virgin, but that's neither here nor there. So they're all dressed up. He's dressed up in his tux. She's dressed up in her wedding gown. Her wedding gown is very elaborate. It's very detailed. It looks also very heavy because it has a lot of like pearls and stuff all over it. It just looks like it's a very heavy wedding gown, but it is pretty. She does look really nice in it. You can tell that she tried to keep it modest. There was no cleavage. It has very long sleeves all the way down to her wrist. It is a full length wedding gown, so it was very modest. And it comes time for Tiger Lily and Adnan to see each other for the very first time. And this is before the actual wedding takes place. So they have a moment, just the two of them together, and they see each other for the very first time. And yeah, it was a beautiful moment. He told her that she looked really cute. She looked really pretty. I thought he would have just like maybe started crying and just been gushing about how beautiful she was. But I guess I've been watching too many TikTok videos where the groom starts to cry the first time he sees his bride. But yeah, he said that she was cute and that she was pretty, and it was a beautiful moment. So I guess next week we're going to see the actual wedding itself. Oh, by the way, while she was getting ready for her wedding, the videographer and the photographer had come into her hotel room to start recording the whole entire wedding process. And Tiger Lily was kind of confused because it was two men. And Adnan keeps talking about how he doesn't want other men around her. So she didn't understand, like, if he doesn't want me to be around other men, why would he hire two male photographers to come and start recording? And I was also confused too about that. Like, I'm very confused about the do's and the don'ts according to Adnan, not according to Islam and not according to Jordan, but according to Adnan. I'm very confused with the things that he allows and the things that he doesn't allow. And Tiger Lily is just as confused. But, Tiger Lily has her heads in the cloud, and she says that love is going to conquer all. And as time goes on, they're going to learn more about each other, and she'll be able to figure it all out, eventually. Let's move on now to Brian and Ingrid. So Ingrid is still very confused about Brian's physical limitations, because Brian had told her before he came down to Brazil, he had told her that he was very independent. He could drive, he lives alone, he does everything by himself, he doesn't need a lot of help, a lot of intervention, he does everything by himself, so he's extremely independent. But ever since he landed in Brazil, he's been asking her to help him out with a lot of stuff. So she's not understanding, like, if you're so independent, why am I doing, a lot of work with helping you? So, so they're driving to her, I guess he's taking her to her parents' home or her family home, because the way they're going to do it is he's not going to stay with her family. He's going to remain in the hotel, and then she's just going to be traveling back and forth between his hotel and her home for the duration of his trip. So as they're driving to her family's home, they're having a conversation about her father, and she tells him how her father is, like, very stuck in his ways. He's very old fashioned. I think this was relating to, y'all, my husband was in the room at this time, and every time he's in the room with me when I'm watching one of my shows that I'm supposed to be doing a review for, he has a lot of questions because he doesn't watch the whole entire show. So he'll pop in here and there, and then he'll have a lot of questions, like, what are they doing? What are they talking about? Who is this? Where are they going? And so I get distracted. So I think they were talking about her father, and the fact that she hasn't told her father yet about Brian. I think that's what they were talking about. And she mentioned how her father, he's not very open minded about certain things, I think. And so then Brian asks Ingrid, well, how old is your dad? And she says, my dad is 54. And he was like, oh, okay, he's not that old because I'm 51. So we're very close in age. And Ingrid was, like, very shocked when he said he was 51. So she looks at him and she's like, you're 51? I thought you were 43. And he was like, no, I've always told you that I was 51. I told you that I have a daughter that's close to your age. And she says in her confessional that this man never told her that he was in his 50s, that she was always under the impression that he was in his 40s because he told her that he was in his 40s. And she said that even on his dating app, it says that he's like 43 or 45. So she was really shocked to find out that he was 54. He claims it must have been some type of miscommunication and that he never told her that he was younger than what he actually was. But then he kind of brushes it off like, oh, but it's no big deal. What's a 5-year difference? So when he kind of brushed it off like that, I was like, Brian, you know damn well you lied about your age to this woman. You saw this young hottie and you're like, you wanted to impress her. So you probably took off about 5 or 6 years off your age. Quit lying, Brian. So this whole time that he's been in Brazil, he's been very apprehensive about telling her the truth about how he ended up getting paralyzed. Now, she knows that he got shot, but she doesn't know the circumstances and the details around the shooting. So he decides to tell her, as they're driving to her family's home, he decides to tell her then and there how it came about that he got shot. So what happened was, around that time, he was married and he was heavily into selling and using drugs. He was using cocaine, selling drugs. He was really deep in that lifestyle. And one day he had a revelation that he didn't want to live like this anymore, and he wanted to change his life, turn his life around, and quit the criminal lifestyle. So he tells his wife that he wants to quit selling drugs and using drugs. And one of the things that he's going to have to do, he's going to have to basically get a divorce from her and leave her. I guess maybe if he was going to get clean, he needed to get away from her because maybe she was also a user or also still living in that drug culture, drug lifestyle, and he needed to get away from her, get away from all of it. So he wanted to divorce her. So he said that she didn't take that very well. And she was so upset about him leaving her that she basically she hired a hitman. She put a hit on him. And so she had a couple of hitmen follow him around. And one day they caught up with him. And as he was coming out of his car or something, they shot him. And that's how he ended up being paralyzed. So when he tells Ingrid this, Ingrid is absolutely shocked. She can't believe what she's hearing. And she's like, well, why didn't you tell me this all before? So he said that he wanted to tell her face to face, something like that. He felt like it was better to tell her face to face. She thinks that he was being very strategic in telling her in person, because he knows that if he would have told her while he was still in the United States, that she would not have allowed this trip to even happen, because she was very, very like put off by this story. The fact that he used to be a drug dealer, the fact that he used to sell drugs, this turned her all the way off. And she said that this is not what she's used to. She wasn't brought up to accept this type of lifestyle. And so she's really upset that he withheld this information from her, because she thinks now that their whole relationship started on a lie, because she never would have been with someone who used to deal with drugs. And I think she even tells him, so what if you go back to drugs? And he's like, I've left that lifestyle alone. I will never go back to drugs. And then she says to him, well, are you not selling drugs and using drugs because you're in a wheelchair? Is that the only thing that's preventing you from going back to that lifestyle? And if you were still walking, you would still be in that lifestyle. So he was highly offended that she would think this of him, because to him, he's completely changed his life around. He would never go back to that, whether he was in a wheelchair or not. That's just not him anymore. And the fact that she still thinks he might still be that way, that highly offended him, and he didn't like that at all. So now there's this tension between Ingrid and Brian. Ingrid thinking that Brian is withholding information. She's still thinking that he's still this drug gangster, and him being upset that she can't accept that he's a new person, he's a new man, he learned his lesson, and he would never go back to that lifestyle. So that's where we're at with that. And there's something about Brian that I don't know. I'm not going to say that rubs me the wrong way, but I think he's kind of manipulative. You know, the fact that he tells her certain things about him when he thinks, it's his information, it's his life, and he can talk about whatever he wants whenever he wants. So he chose to tell her in person. That's his prerogative. But I think that if you are in a wheelchair and you have a story to tell about how you ended up in that wheelchair, just be honest from the beginning. Obviously, she was going to ask, early on in the relationship, like, what happened? How did you become paralyzed? So when he told her initially that he had gotten shot or they had an accident, he should have told her the truth back then. Tell her the whole story back then. Whatever he did tell her, how he became paralyzed, he should have told her the full story back then. And also the fact that he is acting as if he is incompetent to take care of himself, that he needs all this help from her, and that I don't know what's going on with Brian. It's just kind of strange how he's moving with Ingrid. I don't know. Let's move on to Faith and Lauren. Here's another. Oh, Lauren, he's very suspect. I'm beginning. See, I had read an article on one of those blogs websites. I don't know if it was Sarcasm or whatever. They talked about Lauren and how Lauren basically is on this show for clout. Like the relationship between him and Faith is not very genuine, and he's just on this show for clout. And it's kind of coming off like that, because there's things that Lauren has done that just doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so it's time for Lauren. So they're at the hotel, and remember, Faith works at the same hotel that he's staying at, and she also lives in that same hotel. But for his trip, or for his for however long he's going to be staying in the Philippines, they're going to be staying in the same hotel but different rooms, because Faith wants to take their relationship very, very slow. So it's the second day in the Philippines, and he wants to go exchange his American dollars for Philippine money. So they go to the place, wherever it is, to exchange the money, and all he has to exchange is 46 American dollars. And so Faith is like, this is all you brought to the Philippines for the whole entire stay? You only brought $46? And he gives her some mumbo jumbo about how he's got some deposits that are still pending that haven't cleared yet. Oh my god, it just sounds complete like F boy, F boy stuff. Uh I got some deposits pending. Yes, I have much, much, much more money, but I'm just waiting for those checks to clear. Like, whatever. So he exchanges a little $46. And of course, the exchange rate is very high when it turns into Filipino money. So after that, they go to the market and he just starts spending a lot of stuff. He buys a whole bunch of stuff. And this kind of worries Faith that he has spent so much of his money, because she's kind of like wondering, he only came with $46, and now he's spending willing, because he's big balling, all the way when he got the Filipino money. And of course, it was so much Filipino money, he felt like, big baller shot caller. So he says he's never experienced this before in his life, where he could just buy whatever he wanted and buy whatever he wanted for his girl, because whatever. So she was kind of worried about how he was spending his money. And she was like, if I'm going to, dedicate my life to this man, I need him to be a little bit more financially frugal. So after that, they go see a really good friend of hers by the name of Mama Dean. Now, Mama Dean, Faith tells us, is almost like her second mom. That's how close they are. And so Mama Dean also lives in the same hotel, but she lives like in the storage room area. So they go up there to go see her and have dinner with her. And as they're having dinner, Mama Dean is asking Lauren questions about, how do you feel about Faith? How are things going so far? Lauren tells Mama Dean, I love her very much. I tell her all the time how much I love her. Then Mama Dean asks them, so what is the future? What do y'all plan to do? And Lauren says, well, I plan, to be able to stay here in the Philippines with her. And Faith was like, huh? What? You want to do what? Excuse me? Run that by me again? And he's like, yeah, I was going to tell you that my intention really is to stay here in the Philippines. I don't want to go back to America. And Faith was like, the plan was for us to go back to America. I want to go back to I want to go to the United States, where life is better. So then Mama Dean, she steps in and she's like, life here in the Philippines is hard, especially you as a foreigner. It won't be easy for you to get a job. And he says, oh, the whole job thing is taken care of. I can work from home, while I live here in the Philippines. I can work for an American company, get paid American dollars. And then once that's exchanged into Filipino money, it's going to be a lot of money. So we'll be able to sustain ourselves. So I guess this kind of appeased Faith, even though she had wanted to live in the United States. When he explained it like this, and of course with him talking about how much he loves her, wants to be with her, she softened up a little bit, and she was like okay with them living in the United States. I mean, excuse me, she was okay with them living in the Philippines, because she's got the hearts in her eyes and all of that. She's really into this guy. This is her first boyfriend, first relationship. He's saying all the right things. They even talked about how much he accepts her as a trans woman, how that doesn't bother him at all. And he loves the fact that she's a trans woman. So she got all, warm and fuzzy inside. And I guess she felt like, okay, yeah, we can live in the Philippines if that's what you want. As long as we're together, baby, we'll make it work. So later on, okay, so what I wanted to say about that was, why wasn't this discussed before he came to the Philippines? You are in this relationship where you're planning on marrying somebody, whatever, even though I think you're like a plant or an actor. I don't believe this relationship between Lauren and Faith, but whatever. You want us to believe that you and Faith are really in love with each other. Y'all want to get married. Y'all want to live together and all of that. Why wouldn't you talk about it way before you came to the Philippines? Hey, when I come to the Philippines, I'm coming to stay. We're going to live in the Philippines. Like, why aren't these things discussed before like ahead of time? You drop this bomb on her while after you've arrived, and she's thinking y'all are still going to the United States. Like, I don't get that at all, that lack of communication. So after that, the next time that we see Lauren, he tells us that the night before, he's by himself in his room. Now I think it's like his third day in the Philippines now. So he's by himself in the room, and he tells us that he got a call from an ex fling, I guess. And because, also something else that Lauren is keeping from Faith is that he wants to have an open relationship. Faith has no idea. Faith thinks that she's in a monogamous relationship with this man because they're about to get married, or they want to get married, they're thinking about getting married. So she thinks that they're both monogamous. So Lauren has yet to tell her that not only does he want an open relationship, that he's been living as if it is an open relationship, because right before he came to the Philippines, he was messing around with somebody else. That somebody else called him in the middle of the night and told him that they tested positive for oral gonorrhea, or gonorrhea of the mouth, which means that if that person has gonorrhea of the mouth, then Lauren probably has gonorrhea of the penis. And so now he's worried that he might have gonorrhea. Not only that, he's going to have to tell Faith that he may have gonorrhea. So, in the next episode, which is coming next week, that's when we're going to see him drop this bomb on poor Faith that he probably has an STD, and that he got it because he was fooling around with somebody else right before he came to the Philippines to be with her. So I just feel bad for Faith. I feel so bad for her because she's with it looks like a true F boy, but at the end of the day, it probably doesn't even matter because I don't think this is a real relationship. Let's move on to our newest cast member, Niles. So Niles is 27 years old, born and raised in Alabama. He tells us that he's really into role playing and fantasy, but not the spicy kind, the Dungeons and Dragons type. So we see him playing some type of Dungeons and Dragons type game with his friends. He tells us that he has autism spectrum disorder. He talks about that, his whole sensory issues. His senses are extremely heightened. And so sometimes he gets sensory overload. And he talks about how heightened his senses are because in his confessional, he talks about how he can smell the paint on the walls. He can smell the wood from the floors or the table or something. How he can pick up all of these. I was like, damn, that is some heightened senses. That's very, very heightened. He can hear everything. And so sometimes, all of these things become an impediment for him because it's like sensory overload. Okay, fine. So he works as a peer advocate, and we find out that he is dating 23-year-old Matilda from Ghana. They've been dating for about 2 years. They met on social media. Y'all, do y'all remember like way back in the early days of 90 Day Fiance, people would actually meet each other through traveling? They would actually travel the world or travel to different countries, and then they'd end up, having a relationship or falling in love with somebody in that country. Now everybody's just meeting on social media. They met on social media, and Matilda knows that Niles is autistic and she's completely okay with that. She's cool with that. And he's going to be traveling to Ghana in about a week to see her. Now, he's already proposed to her. He proposed to her 5 months prior, and Matilda is planning a wedding. She wants to get married while he is in Ghana. So, his very first time traveling to Ghana, very first time seeing her face to face, she's planning a wedding. She wants them to get married by the end of the trip. So he's talking to his homeboy about this, how she's planning this wedding and she wants to get married. And the homeboy is like, aren't you moving a little bit too fast? And Niles is in agreement. Yes, we are moving too fast. I have to have a conversation with her to let her know that I don't want to get married on this trip. I want us to get to know each other better. But he's scared to death of Matilda. He is scared to death of her. So he picked up a second job as a food delivery guy. And in between deliveries, he decides today's the day that I'm going to tell Matilda to hold off on the wedding. So he calls her, he FaceTimes her, and she immediately goes into talking about the wedding, how she's told everybody and their dog that they're getting married, that she's planning this wedding and she just can't wait to get married. And so he thought that he could finesse. He thought that he could finesse her because he starts off by saying, well, because this wedding is going to be so, so, so grand and so beautiful and so important to us, I think we need to take a little bit more time in planning it. So maybe it shouldn't happen like on this go around. And she's like, Niles, we are getting married when you get to Ghana. Okay. And so he loses all of his nerves and he can't tell her that he wants to postpone the wedding. He completely chickens out. And so um now he's stuck. Okay, now he's stuck with this because she doesn't want to hear anything about postponing it. I think she knew where he was getting at, and she like completely stopped him right then and there. And she's like, "Hell no, we're getting married." Okay, I don't know what you think is going on, but I'm planning this wedding, and we're getting married when you get here. So we'll see how that goes. Moving on to Via and Sunny. So remember Via, she is the lady that is going to bring her ex-boyfriend to South Africa with her when she meets her boyfriend for the very first time. So she's coming home from work and she's FaceTiming her boyfriend Sunny, who lives in South Africa. And she tells him that she's getting really tired and she just wants to hop in the shower and go to bed. So he wants her to take the phone with her into the shower so that she can give him a show, which she does. And I keep thinking to myself, Like, when are we going to learn? Like, what if he was recording that? And I understand it's on a show and everything, but of course the show blurs everything out. But like, what if he was recording that and then things don't go well between the two of you? Now he's got that to, to like blackmail you or whatever. Like, I don't, people, stop being naked on camera. Stop recording yourselves being naked on camera. Just stop, please, because you've never even met this guy, and here you are allowing him to look at you naked through his phone. You have no idea like what he's going to do with that footage. Moving on. So after her shower, they're talking about her trip to South Africa, and they're gonna get a hotel. He has a roommate, so they're gonna get a hotel for them to have some privacy. And so I'm assuming, he's Muslim, right? But I see he's Muslim, but I think he's not very strict with his religion, because he's going to be staying with her in this hotel together. And I guess he's not really concerned about her converting to Islam, because she asked him, so when I get there, are you going to expect me to convert to Islam? Or when we get together, not necessarily when she gets there, but like as their relationship progresses, will you have an expectation of her converting to Islam? And he tells her, no, I don't expect you to convert to Islam, but as your boyfriend, it's my job to ask you if you will convert to Islam. And so then she says to him, well, that means you want me to convert to Islam. If you're asking me, that means that's what you want me to do. But she's not going to do that. She tells us straight up, I am not going to convert to Islam. She had a really bad experience with religion growing up. So she's not religious. She's not into any of that. She's not going to do it. So I hope, because he says it's not that important to him for her to convert. She says she's not going to convert. Let's not have any more discussions about this, because I'm sick and tired of 90 Day Fiance, how when someone is dating someone of the Islamic faith, this religion becomes a huge, huge, huge point of contention in their religion. And I'm bored with it, and I'm sick and tired of it. And I don't want to hear about people arguing whether or not someone's going to convert to Islam, then they convert, then they don't like it, then they want to go back. I don't want to hear none of that. I am bored to death with the whole conversation of whether someone is going to convert and what it means to convert, and they're going to convert, but they're not going to like. I'm tired of it. No more. So let's not talk about this anymore, Via and Sunny. Sunny acts like he doesn't really care. She doesn't want to do it. End of discussion. So so they talk about that. Now, the day before she leaves for South Africa, her ex-boyfriend comes over, and we learn more about the relationship, and I guess we get somewhat of a clearer understanding as far as why she wants to take her ex-boyfriend with her to South Africa. So they've been through a lot together. They've known each other for 6 years. They dated for 2.5. And during that time that they dated, some very like tragic events happened where they had to, like, I guess, lean on each other and support each other through it. One thing that happened was her brother, who she was extremely close with, ended up being shot and killed by law enforcement. So he was there for her for that. Also, during the time that her brother was killed, I think she was pregnant with his child, and then she ended up losing the baby. So I guess they had to be there for each other for that. But the pressure and the stress of losing a child, I guess, kind of affected their relationship, because soon after that, they went their separate ways. And they remained friends, and he considers her one of his best friends. So they have a very strong bond, a very strong friendship, and she wants to take him to South Africa because she needs the support, just in case things don't go with her and Sunny, or if her and Sunny get into an argument. She wants to have somebody there for the whole thing. To me, is just, it's so silly. The fact that she's going to drag her ex-boyfriend with her to South Africa, the fact that he's willing to go, even though he's very apprehensive about it. This whole thing is very stagey to me. I don't know if Via and Sunny are also a fake couple, but it's just very stagey. Like, who really does that in the real world? Drag an ex to go meet their current boyfriend for the very first time. Like, I don't understand. Like, who does that? The whole thing to me seems just very stagey. Um, and the fact that the boyfriend is willing to do it, I don't know. It's just silly. It's just so silly. And I kind of get frustrated watching Via and Sunny, because everything is leading up to Sunny finding out, or Sunny seeing Via show up in South Africa with her ex. And so whatever they're talking about, whatever's going on with them besides that, it's not interesting, because we're just waiting for that moment when Sunny lays eyes on Via and her ex at the airport. We're just waiting for that moment to come, that nothing else about their storyline really matters. And I'm tired of that. I'm like, let's just hurry up and get to it. Let's watch him be shocked, her give her stupid explanation of why her ex-boyfriend is there, him getting over the shock, and let's just move on. That's where I want to go. I want to hurry up and get to the point where Sonny already discovers that the ex-boyfriend is there, and they talk about it and they get over it, and so we can move on to other things. That's what I'm looking forward to. But that's my review, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video if you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.